to get in here. Oh, thank you, Terry. Yes, I did get my, I was braved the salon the other day after, in November, at the end of November, when I was in Texas. I got my hair done, and the salon, the woman working there, literally burned off about 3/4 of my hair. And then they actually just didn't really care. They just told me basically, oh, sorry. Didn't barely even tell me that. And so I tried to get it done another time about 6 weeks later, and the salon would not do it because they said you need to give it time. So I did, and that's why it was growing out. And then I went the other day to get it done, but I still can't go back to what I want. So it's going to be a process. But thank you so much, Terry. All right, well, it's a couple minutes after, so we'll go ahead and jump in. So here where all of these children are playing, this when I walked through this from the other side over there, I did actually feel like maybe I was, way back when I would, there was lions and tigers being hunted in the middle of this thing, because it was a little frightening walking through here. But this is the Aranda de Ticia. So it's definitely one of the oldest things here in Paris, which last week we had all sorts of old things in Paris. And this is definitely one of the oldest things. This dates actually back to the 1st century, and it was discovered in the 19th century. So it was here in the 1st century. It stood in for more than 200 years. And at one point it was so large, like what we see today is much smaller than it was. But it actually used to be able to hold 17,000 spectators. Most of it ended up getting destroyed in the 3rd century by the Vikings, and then in the 6th century it was restored by Chiperic I, who was the grandson of Clovis. And then they later ended up just they took apart the stones they were used to build other buildings within the city. And so a lot of it was destroyed, and then it just was completely covered up. And nobody knew it was even here, like with many things that when you talk about the bottom of the Louvre and underneath Notre Dame, most people didn't know these things were here because, literally, hundreds and hundreds of years go by, except for this area was still called the Arène. So they probably should have known something was here. So in the 19th century, in 1869, when they were going to widen Rue Monge, which is what we're going to go out and walk off of, and they ended up starting to discover this. And it was he was an archaeologist and an architect, and his name was Theodore Verriquet. And he was the one who ended up finding this here. And he actually ended up being somebody they brought in when they discovered the part underneath the Louvre, all sorts of stuff. So this guy was actually, when I was looking up information for today, I discovered him, and now I want to find out even more and all the things that he was able to find. But it was then it was Mr. Victor Hugo who not only saved Notre Dame for us, but he saved this, because he actually started a big, huge petition and was writing about it in the papers and to save this. And so everybody got behind him, and luckily they saved it. So you could use it here to get your head knocked in by a soccer ball. But you have, like, over on the side, there's like little, like, say straight ahead, you could kind of see where those cages are. Those are probably where they kept the lions. And then they have these boxes over here on this side is where, like, the elite and the monarchy would sit. But it's a really cool place. It's always filled with lots of people on nice days. We have some baton players in a couple different spots here. But you could kind of just go sit up there and just spend a lovely little afternoon in the sun. All the little, so we are in the Latin Quarter. I'm just getting the hang of this thing. What I don't like is that it's more conspicuous. I kind of like my other way. But you have it here so you might not even realize this is here, because this is what it looks like from the street. So from the street, and we're here on the Rue Monge. I hope it's not going to rain. We're going to head down here, and I'm hoping to take us into a church, but problem doing it at this time is usually there's mass going on, but we're going to cross our fingers and maybe get around the side to see if there's maybe nobody there. But oh, and there's the strike has been going on. So Tuesday was the huge strike that pretty much nothing was working at all. Everything, there was no metros or trains or buses or anything. The next day, Wednesday, it was a bit better. They had, it would be like, 1 and 3 trains were running, depending on where you are. If you do come to Paris and you're worried about strikes, which if you look on those Facebook message groups right now, people coming in, even in 9 months are freaking out there might be a strike. If you are, stay on one of the lines that isn't operated by a human. So one is definitely one of those, because they'll still run. So if you're worried, stay there. But one thing that's still on strike is the garbage guys. The garbage guys are on strike. They're not working. And if you live in an area that has a lot of restaurants like I do, it's really bad. It's pretty bad. And if there's a fish restaurant really close to me, it's really not fun walking by their garbage. Now, thankfully it's cold. Ooh, look at this. Thankfully it's cold out. Ooh, look at that. It's a Perry breast. Yum, yum, yum. But I'm sure my favorite little critters will be out as well. So I'm just trying to stay away from any meetings in the dark of night on the street, because that scares me, that those things with their gross little tails. But it doesn't make for the prettiest of pictures. But this is what it's really like to live in Paris or to visit Paris. These are the things that happen. These are the things you see. So we're heading down Rue Cardinal Lemoine here, which at the top of Cardinal Lemoine, you all know that is where Hemingway lived the first time he came to Paris. This is usually kind of a quieter area. A lot of the restaurants around here will be closed on the weekends, specifically, for sure Sunday nights, because this is where all the schools are. So when the schools are out, a lot of those restaurants close. I stayed down here one time and that was a little difficult because it made for some challenging times to find something for dinner. So look at this gorgeous building here. See, how do I get this to go up? Yeah. I could stick it in here. Can I stick this in here? Get this? Maybe not. Maybe not. Come on. Look at that. The uses now for event spaces. It's kind of been completely redone. But we're right on the edge. We got part of the Sorbonne right next to us. And I was just over here last night too, because I went to a favorite Bon Vivant with my friend Jenny and Edward. Delicious. I'll take you right by it. If you like steak frites, this is the place to go. Yesterday was also the huge match between England and France rugby for the Nation Cup, and France won, of course. So we got there literally just as it finished. So we thought it was going to be, they were all watching it in the restaurant. I'll show you. So there's the post office there. Every once in a while, the post office will let you go in and go down to the basement because part of the wall that went around the city was there. I just stayed one time just right past it, at the very end at number 9 Boulevard Saint-Germain. And that literally was the wall. I stayed, like, my apartment If I touched the wall in the kitchen, I was literally touching the wall. And it went surrounded the city. It was pretty cool. So here is the Cave, Bon Vivant Cave. And then you have the restaurant right here. We'll go across the street so you get a better picture of it. But it's delicious. One thing that can be hit or miss in Paris is steak frites. Sometimes the steaks in America might be the only thing I'll ever say is probably sometimes better, but this place, Bon Vivant, is amazing. They even have huge things. They have this tomahawk steak that's supposed to be for 2 people, but usually if it's 3 or 4 of us, we get one of those with a couple different sides, and it's more than enough. We still had some left over last night. The Bon Vivant, that is on my website, ClaudineHemingway.com. I have a list of addresses of my favorite restaurants, and this is one of those. So make sure if you're coming, check that out. Witness gotta pick it up. And we're gonna kind of weave up and down some of these little streets, some of these cute little streets. And this is the Rue de Poissy. And a couple of these streets here, the next couple ones we see in a row, they all get their name because of cattle areas, because a very, very long time ago, they had, this is where you'd come and you could get meat. So kind of perfect for Bon Vivant to be here. But Poissy is a city just outside of Paris that is really known for its cattle. So this building, this is one of the things I wanted to share today specifically. I usually find a couple things that I want to share, and then I kind of put it all together, make it fit. But this gorgeous building here, sorry guys, I'll get the hang of this thing. I don't know why I just can't cooperate. So this really, really cool building here is the College de Boulogne. And it is a really, really cool building. The original one that was here dated back to 1248. It was a former Cistercian college, and it goes back to the time of Saint Louis. So this was basically built when Saint Louis was here, the original one. And then during the Revolution, it was used as a prison. Pretty nice. It looks like something you would see in the Burgundy region, like the way the roof is. The guy's smashing his car mats behind me. But it is super, super cool. And you could go inside. And inside it, they use it for like events and things. And I think right now there's like a photo exhibit going on. But you could go inside and it just has all of these, I don't know if you could really see in there. But inside it has these really, really cool columns. Like if you've been into the conciergerie, you go downstairs in the conciergerie, it looks a lot like that, but it's really neat. In 2001, it was taken over by the Catholic Church. And recently they've had they were doing a special thing about Notre Dame in here. So it was one of those kind of virtual reality Notre Dame things that I didn't make it over to because it was around Easter last year. And so every time I was trying to get down here, it was closed because it's part of the Catholic Church. So it was closed every other minute for some sort of Easter event. But it's really neat. So definitely pop in here when you come. I don't even think, I think it's free too. Yeah, free, 10 to 6. But it's, yeah, it's over. They restored it and reopened it in 2012. So this is exactly the prettiest to walk with all the garbage out here. But look at this building here, number 15. And the next, look at how up there. And number 14 down here on the left, there used to be quite a long time ago, and Guillaume Apollinaire wrote about it. It used to be a little museum of Napoleon. See, look, I love all of these Gothic windows, but look at that great reflection. It's a really, really cool space. There's not a lot you can get to go through when you go in there because it's mostly just a big open room and used, as I said, for events. But it's still kind of cool because, how often do you get a chance to go into a 13th century? But here at number 14 is where they used to have a tiny little Napoleon museum, but that closed about 100 years ago. So we just missed it. And this out here is Boulevard Saint-Germain, and I love this building across the street. When I stayed around the corner here, I walked by here one day and just was like completely in awe of this building that you can see right there. It's really, really amazing. Let's see if I can zoom in here too. Well, maybe not. There you go. It's really gorgeous. It replaces a building that used to stand there. And this one was built in 1889. But it's really, really cool. Like the carving on it, they definitely built it in that more of that old Renaissance style. And this here, so I actually stayed, I think, nope, it's the next block down. These are all boarded up right now because on Tuesday, the march that they did for the Grève walked right down Boulevard Saint-Germain. It started over by the Bon Marché and they came all the way down to here. And from my window, I'm just a couple blocks off of Boulevard Saint-Germain. And from my window for about 2.5 hours, I could hear the music and the talk, like the screaming and the cheering. And then I started hearing lots of bangs, but I didn't go back out and check it. I thought about going out and checking it out. And I thought, I don't think so. And we were recording that day. So luckily it kind of moved on right as we started recording. Right here on the corner, you have the original Diptyque store. So for all of you candle fans, Diptyque, this is the original store. So 34 Boulevard Saint-Germain. So I think they even have a special candle and a scent and everything that's called 34 Saint-Germain. But their store was right here. But I just discovered a different candle, and I love their candles. Like I used to think they were just it was crazy. Why spend $70 on a candle? That's ridiculous. And then Jean-Michel Oquinel did a special collaboration with them, made a special candle and scent that had to do with the rose that he made for the Louvre. And so then of course I had to have it. And that was one of the greatest candles ever. They are so well made and they burn really, really slow, and the smell is amazing. And so it definitely was worth it. I mean, it lasted forever. Some of those candles you get and they, you light them and an hour later they're gone. This one was great. So I've gotten other ones. But last week I discovered Trudon. I just ran into that thing on the door. I discovered this candle called Trudon, and it is actually the oldest candle maker in Paris and in France. And so I'll share that with you guys pretty soon. But here, this lovely scaffolding, we are on the Rue de Pontoise, and this is a swimming pool that was built in 1933. Can't really see much of it today, but it's actually kind of neat. I found some pictures of it online on the inside. There's actually quite a few swimming pools in Paris that you could use. But the funny thing is that to go to any of these things, or if you want to go to a gym, you have to go to the doctor and get a clearance before you could go to any of those things. So, or if you're going to do like a 5K or you're going to do a run or anything, you have to get this paper signed off by a doctor. And I had a client that was here and he wanted to go do this, and he went to go, the day before. I think he was doing a half marathon, and he went to go get his bib and do everything. And they were like, "No, monsieur, where is your form?" And he was like, "What are you talking about?" And they gave him a name of a doctor, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor basically was like, "Give me the form." Signed it. That was it. There was no there was no checking to see, look how cute this little place is. Le Rendezvous des Artistes. Look at how cute that is. I gotta come back, see if it's open. It kind of doesn't feel like it's gonna be open. This little street right here is Rue Saint-Victor. And this was because there used to be a church and abbey that was right here. It was also torn out when they did the Rue Mange, but I just love it. I actually kind of love this little street. I remember discovering this one when I stayed at the end of Boulevard Saint-Germain. I just think it's like, I don't know, I just like how, and it's just, you know, it's one tiny spot off of the street, Rue Mange, which is a busier street, and so quiet. So we're going to hopefully go in to the Église Saint-Nicolas de Chardonnay. Not Chardonnay as in the wine, but let's see. They do have a thing on the wall, the door, that says, I don't even know, no phones. But when I was in there last night on my way to dinner, I was walking around and I poked my head into a chapel and it was dark. And this woman came, I thought she was going to yell at me, tell me to get out. But she actually turned on the light for me. So let's go see. Let's go try. Because it's such a beautiful church inside, but I'm not going to push it. They're cute little guys. They, I think, are doing Vespers at 5, and then the service is at 6. So we'll try to go in here. So if I could hear talking. Oof.
Va se porter au mal d'elle-même, par perversité et par malice. Je perpétra du péché qui brise.
Well, I'm worried about. I'm worried about interrupting them, and because I really wanted to go down to the side and show you the chapel, Saint Charles. Which, oops, what's happening here? We don't want it to go this way. What's happening? No, other way, this way. What's happening? Let's see. Stop. What did I do? Oh, other way, other way. I don't know what I did. How do I make it go back? It's gonna be all messed up. Hang on a second, guys. I don't know what I hit. Anyway, I wanted to go in there because they have this amazing chapel that is dedicated to, let's see, dedicated to Charles Lebrun, and that is where he's actually buried. And so let's see, do I do it this way? Nope. I don't want to turn it off. I have to turn it back on. Well, maybe we'll just stay this way till it does whatever it's going to do. Now I understand poor Kate when she was doing this and all the issues it gave her. I kind of hit something over here, and no. Oh well, we'll keep it on this way. It's just going to be messed up for the recording, but it's really, really cool. And the chapel, let's see if we can see it kind of from the other side over here. is so Charles Lebrun, who was the decorator, and he was an artist, but he was a decorator to Louis the 14th, and he is the one who basically created Versailles. He originally created Vaux-le-Vicomte for Fouquet, and then Louis stole him away and took him over to Versailles. And so he actually was the one who actually did all of the work on designing this. What if I just turned it on my own? It doesn't like that. Okay, guys. Well, I guess this is how it's going to stay. I'm sorry. This is annoying. This is annoying. How do I get it to? It has a little bit like thing. Sorry, guys. And so he was the one who actually originally designed the church. So when he passed away, they buried him. His tomb is here. The tomb of his mother is here as well. And he gave a bunch of paintings. So there's a bunch of really, really gorgeous paintings that are here inside the church as well. That it's really cool to see all of those in here. If you like Charles Lebrun. And what's really cool about this church is that the original church that stood here is actually was in the 12th century. And then the second one was built in the 15th century in 1425. And then under Louis the 14th, he's the one who redid it and had this one built in 1656. So it is a church that was basically completely done under Louis the 14th. And so that is why the inside has all of these amazing art, like Charles Lebrun and Champigny and all of these other just amazing artists. And it's really beautiful. You saw for a second, I hope, these gorgeous chandeliers that are in there. It's just a really, really cool church. You can see a little bit of some spring flowers, but they're doing some work in there, but when you walk in, you are just completely smothered in this chemical smell. And last night when I went in there, I was like, oh, holy moly, so strong. And I started getting a headache almost immediately. So I don't know what it is, but it's right by the front door when you walk in, but it's really, really strong. I'm really annoyed, guys, that this isn't, what is this doing? Why can't it go back? Let's see. I let go of the handle. It goes crazy. Well, which maybe we could figure it out along the way. Look, I try to move it around and it's not doing it. So here's this gorgeous building here. Look at this building. This is the Rue des Grenadins. And you have this, look at all of the railings on here. So cool. Get a little, I don't want to get run over out here. And we're heading down right towards the end of Notre Dame right now. But this building here replaced another building that had been here years ago. This one was built in 1890. Look at that ironwork. Isn't it just exquisite? So amazing. Oh, this thing is really annoying me. All right, guys. Trying to mess around with it. Oh, well, okay. Nothing I could do about it at the moment. This building here, we're going to come around to the front of it, but it kind of starts, these buildings right here kind of start, and we go around to the K, and this is the bridge that goes straight over to the bridge of the archbishops, goes over towards the end of Notre Dame. Look at that cute little place. But look at this one, okay, to one on the left, I'm going to show you guys this one. Look at how cool this little courtyard is. And all of those grapes. Oh, we can look at that. Love that. This darn thing's supposed to make everything smoother. I don't know about that. This might be the last walk we do. I'm about at my wit's end at the moment. So here, this building, I always used to walk by this when I stayed down here. And I was, what is this building? And you have here, it says the Hotel de Nesmond. And this building here, this kind of back in the courtyard is much older, but the gate itself here on the street was added. And that goes back to the 16th century. So it's the 16th and 17th century is how old this building is. And it was built for the baker of Philip the Sixth. So not a bad gig, not a bad place for the baker of the king to live. Right here. But then it changed hands quite a few times. And then it ended up going to, because the original part of it that's back inside goes back to the 14th century. And so then over time, it ended up passing through quite a few different hands. And the Duc de Montpensier lived here for a while. And then he ended up selling it to the Duc de Nesmond. And then his daughter-in-law took it over. And she was another one that I want to find more information out about. But his daughter-in-law, the Madame de Mérimont, she ended up being, her husband died 8 months after they got married. She was 4.5 months pregnant at the time. He died, and then later her father died, and she became like one of the wealthiest women in all of Europe. And at one point, she got kidnapped. So she was born in 1629. So this is, quite a long time ago. She was kidnapped. And she was kidnapped and held for 2 years before they finally let her go. And then she ended up coming back here. This is one of the properties that she had, and she had her father-in-law's name added to the door here, which is kind of cool. But I couldn't find actually a lot of information out about her just in the few hours I was looking. But I want to go find some more because what a fascinating little story that is. So we're here at the end. I'll show you here for a second while we walk over. You can see Our Lady there. She's getting better slowly but surely. It keeps saying by the end of 2024, but when I talked to the guy that's in charge of the whole entire thing, Philippe, he told me that it was on track for April 16th. So the plan is to have it safe enough that you could go inside. It might not necessarily be completely obviously finished. That's going to take a long time, but at least to have it so you go inside. So that's like a year. That's like a year and a month away. So we're going to weave in and out of here. And so hopefully, because last week I wanted to take you guys by and tell you some more about the Fontaine Saint-Michel. And there was some sort of a little thing happening there. And so we bypassed it. But hopefully today we'll end there. So here's some more. Oh, cute. So this street, cute little spot here. Look at this building here. So this is a Rue des Grands Degrés. And I came down here because I want to show you this restaurant. This is a restaurant called the Lemonade, and it is amazing. If you come to Paris, definitely come here. It's also on my list. I have eaten there with clients. I've eaten there on my own, and it's always amazing. It's so, so good. But the building itself is really cool. It goes back to the 12th century originally. So part of the inside wall is from the 12th century, but then it has been redone over time. And the building that we see right now is a 14th century. And up above it is these really cool kind of faded paintings. And so this is telling you that this used to be a ancient house of Avignon and Beauchamp. And it was a sign painters. And so there on the left hand, on the edge of it, you actually have a seal that's supposed to be like a seal of the United States. And then the other ones are just kind of showing you these, lovely women painting a sign. But the building has been restored over time, but they just have kept those there, which is really cool. There is a really cute little music box store, and they have a bunch of the little cute collectibles in there. And they have these little Scandinavian, I'll show you real quick. They weren't open last night when I walked down here. I really wanted to come in because I want to come back and get one, because I had a whole collection of these my mom gave me, and I saved a couple of them, but I didn't save them all. And I want to come back because we had a Santa that looked just like that. And I had all of these cute little angels. So I want to come in and see how much they are, because I have to come back and get some. But we had that, see, had that cute little Santa, but I think they are Scandinavian. And they're so cute. But they have like music boxes and all sorts of cute little things. See, you can see all the little angels back there playing musical instruments. I got to come back. I'm going to stop looking at my phone because it's annoying me. It is not great. There's another great little old sign for Bay. But here I would avoid any of these restaurants here in the front, but definitely come to Le Minet. It is fantastic. It is so, so good. And you might, some of you movie lovers might recognize the next little spot we go to from two different films. So we turn into the Rue de Boucherie, which is named after, because this is when this was actually right. We were basically right where we are was once a canal of the river. And it dried up and they put the street over. This is actually the oldest street on the entire left bank, is this street right here. But right here, if you've seen that movie, Devil Wears Prada, this is where Andy goes on the date with the hot guy. And then they stop right here and he kisses her. And then if you look on this other side, we'll turn around this way. This restaurant, which hopefully is going to reopen, this is where in Julia and Julia that she had lunch and she sat outside. So right here in this little tiny corner, this is right here, the Square Recife de la Breton. He was a writer who lived just right around the corner at number 16, which is where we'll walk right past it. But look at how cute this little street is. How cute is that door? I love these old little medieval streets that really give you that feeling of what Paris looked like. I think that's why I really love the left bank the most, because you get all of these great little spots. Fun little streets. And, if you're walking down the quay, just one block over, it's kind of a nightmare to try to get through because there's so many people and the sidewalk's really, really narrow. And just come over one block, come one street over. So here's this building here on the corner. That's the L'Hotel Colbert and the Rue de Boucherie. Here, there's a plaque there for Simone de Beauvoir, who was another one of those women that everybody likes, but she was actually a pedophile. So we're not going to talk about her because she's gross. This building right here, this is a really cool building. Check this out. This was part of the medical school. So we're quite across on Ile de la Cité, and so that's where the Hotel Dieu is. And the Hotel Dieu, the hospital and the medical school stretch all the way over here. So that's also why they call it the Latin Quarter, because it was school, and everybody was very smart, and they were teaching Latin at the time. They were speaking Latin, and so we have just right past us is where we started last week. But this used to be the amphitheater for the medical school, And now it's like a philanthropy lab. And there's like incubators in there, and there's co-working space and all sorts of stuff. But it's really gorgeous. Look at how they redid this. But they kept all of those amazing Gothic pieces and stuff. But look at, there's a, hi guys. And then just right around here, right around the corner from us, that is where Edme Restif lived. But look, it's such a cute little street. Some of the other streets, like Rue Saint Victor, that went by in front of the church that we were on, a lot of those streets ended up getting demolished when they did Romange going through there. And now let's see, we will go, I guess we'll go the belly of the beast here. Give you a shot of Notre Dame. We'll come over here next month, in a month, when it's her anniversary. So I noticed yesterday, Instagram's doing this new thing, and you're up on your, the top where your stories are. And it had, do we check on the blossoms? We'll walk through here again real quick. They had memories. And 2 years ago, yesterday, it showed that was when they announced, that they were cutting all flights starting on Friday, coming out of Europe. Any flights coming, nobody could return to the US. If you were out of the country, you have to return. It just caused a huge panic because it was just the start of the whole lockdown of COVID. Look at all the daffodils. You got Notre Dame there. Look at her. So pretty. But looks like we got a few more blossoms there, not too many more. It was so cold this week. But it's crazy to think that was 2 years ago. 3 years ago. 3 years ago. 2 years ago at this time, I was very sick. 3 years ago, we were all about to get locked in our houses for a while. So we're going to walk down the quai Saint Michel a tiny bit, walk across the street if I can, because there's all this construction going on. This side of the street's pretty narrow, so we'll see how far we could go. Hopefully the garbage guys come back to work. Yeah, we'll go over this way. Get another little shot of Notre Dame. I'm really sorry, guys, about this camera. I think it would be easier to do it the way I've been doing it. This stuff is frustrating. So here, this is the Quai Saint Michel starts. And I learned probably 15 years ago when I was doing my tour de French cuisine. And then I would write about the history of all the places the Tour de France was. But then I would have recipes. I'd cook something that was from each region, from each day, sometimes specifically from that town. I did so much research on it. But that's when I learned, because when they came into Paris, they'd come down the quai and I would learn that it could be the same street, but they changed the name changes. And so I just thought, well, that's the craziest thing. So, and it's also changes the number. So it just starts again. So there's the Quai Saint Michel, there's number 1, and then it goes down. And then there's the Quai Voltaire, then it just starts again at 1. I was like, how are people supposed to remember that? But then you just figure it out. You learn which are which, and also since then we have GPS. So here, the Quai Saint Michel is this little street here. The hotel and the first hotel on the corner back there was designed inside, right there on the corner, was designed by Christian Lacroix inside there. I don't know if that's the best. I don't think I'd want to stay there. I stayed right behind the boulevard or the Fontaine Saint Michel before, and it's just a lot of tourists. It's pretty loud. But I also now live on the street that's very loud. But one thing I wanted to show was specifically this building right here, number 19. Kind of loud, hopefully. So number 19, this building here, there's a big long plaque on it. But this was a building that quite a few artists lived there, including Matisse. He lived there for a while, from 1895 to 1907. But another artist that not many people know much about, but I'm going to make sure that that changes. An artist named Jacqueline Marval. She came at the end. She was born in the late 19th century, came up in Paris at the beginning of the 19th century as an artist. And she became friends with Picasso and Matisse and everybody. She was their contemporary. She lived here from 1916 to 1932. This is where she was when she passed away. And she lived here for a while with Jules Flandre. He was also an artist that was her lover. But she is an amazing artist. She does these really beautiful, very feminine paintings. But she has one painting that she did that is looking right outside her window towards Notre Dame with the most beautiful big bouquet of lilies and flowers. It's so pretty. But I know about her because my good friend Camille, her family is the Comité Jacqueline Marval. And what that is basically they are the keepers of her torch, so to speak. So if something like a painting of hers comes up for auction, they contact her and her father, and then they look at it and they say that, yes, she did paint this. No, she didn't. You see that a lot. If you go on Sotheby's and Christie's and you're watching the auctions, which if you're into art, it is a really, really cool way to see a bunch of paintings that you're probably never going to see because most of those all go into private hands. But it's really cool because you can go on their website and then you hit the provenance, and you can go down there and they'll say who it belonged to and where it was and if it was in exhibits and all the good stuff. But they would basically contact them to say a painting belonged to her. But they also have a new, over the 16th, they have a little place that's not open to people to come in and visit. But I'm going to start doing some stuff with them. I'm going to do some live videos and share her story. But she was really amazing. Some of her paintings, when you look at some of the paintings she did, and she was friends with Picasso and Matisse, and you look at some of the paintings they did later, you definitely see where what she did inspired them. But of course, because she doesn't get, there's a fireman. She doesn't really get the credit for that. But she's really amazing. Had some really beautiful pieces. They had two of her paintings were at the Musée de Luxembourg for the exhibit they did about pioneers that were about women artists at the beginning of the 20th century. It was really cool. And they might actually have her paintings in a few other exhibits. But her story is really amazing. And so I'm going to bring some of that to you. Let's see how it looks over here. Oh, look, there's Napoleon. Oh, well, we don't want to show those. Those aren't PG-13 pictures. Let's see. So try to walk down here, not get run over by a bike. There's lots of construction here. Oh, it looks like it's kind of quiet over there. So I think we should be okay. We'll head on over here. But it's a little nicer. I also was thinking, I brought my book. We have the 150th episode of the podcast coming up. I can't believe it. And the 3-year anniversary as well, and in May. And so I was trying to think, what do I do for the 150th? So of course, I'm going to do something about the Louvre and a story that I love to share that has to do with my girl Rose Ballon. So, but I was rereading this book that I read, but well, what the heck? Look at that, guys. I have no idea what just happened. But there's an amazing book called Saving Mona Lisa by Jerry Chanel. Bad last name. It is amazing. Read this book. But I've been skimming through it again because I just actually wanted to read it again because it's so good. And I brought it with me and I was gonna make notes. And then I realized because I changed my purse, I didn't bring my wallet. It's been a day, guys. So here we are. Let's see if we can, now it almost would be good to have it at that other view because it is, we could get all of the fountain in here, but this is the Fontaine Saint-Michel and it is gorgeous. And it all has something to do with the liberation of Paris. But this was actually Napoleon Bonaparte. It was kind of his idea at first, but then this was placed here under Napoleon III. And so Napoleon III, wanted to change all these big, avenues and add these avenues and have big focal points at the end of it. And they had torn all of this up because they were putting in the metro because we're right over the Saint-Michel metro station that also is the RERC. If you're going out to Versailles and you're staying around here, this is where you want to get it, except for right now because it's closed. But this is, they have this big space. So they decided to put this fountain in. It was originally conceived by Gabriel Daviau, and he did quite a few. He and Baltar did a lot of the really cool things you see in the city, the different benches. Daviau also did the beautiful gates at the Parc Monceau that we love. But this was his idea, and he grabbed quite a few different artists to do it. Francis Doré is the one who did the Saint Michel up there, vanquishing the demon, which I love Saint Michel. And I'm very excited to someday soon go out to the Mont Saint Michel, which is my grandparents' favorite place. And maybe I'll take a little of my grandma out there. But he ended up doing that. That's done in bronze. The chimeras was done by Henri Jacquemin, and these are really cool because if you look here on the bottom of them, they now say how they're dedicated to the French soldiers that fought in the liberations. I love that only in France you find wine bottles. But if you look up there on his wing, do you see those holes? Those are from the liberation of Paris. There's quite a few on this one, and there's a few on the other one as well. But you have a invader there. But there's also something on this statue that you don't see from that time very often. But if you look up kind of in the center below the plaque, come on, there we go. On either side of those four statues, those were all done by Claude, who was a woman. So a lady did all those, which is not, you don't see a lot of that here, especially going back to the 19th century and especially going farther back than that. So that is really awesome. The four statues in bronze that are the four cardinal virtues. Those are also done by Doré. And from left to right, you have prudence, justice, tolerance, and force that are up there, which are just kind of perfect for the liberation. But this is where they had a lot of the barricades they set up here on the streets. You have a lot of bullet holes around here. Yesterday, hopefully I'll go and save it. If you missed it in my stories, I made about a 6-minute video from the Boulevard Saint-Germain, where was in 1918, 105 years ago yesterday, that the Ministry of Arms was attacked, and that whole area was attacked by the Germans in World War I. And my grandpa took a picture of the plaque on that building, and it's one of my favorite pictures that he has, because it was a moment where I did exactly what he did. I just found it wandering, and then we were in the same place at the same time, about 40 years apart. But isn't this beautiful? And this is, I love, actually, I'll be really happy when it's spring and it gets sunny and warmer. But I also love this time of the year because you just get to see so much more of the architecture, and it just kind of frames it so perfectly. But those pink granite columns and the Corinthian capitals on there, it's such a beautiful fountain. Most of the fountains should be coming back on soon. It's supposed to be, yesterday it said there was a threat of snow tomorrow, but I don't see that anymore. So they'll probably wait a little bit longer for them to turn on the fountains, but it'll be nice when they do. Now people sit inside of them at Saint-Sulpice, and then where was I yesterday? I was at another fountain, and people were sitting inside of them. But isn't she beautiful? This is one of those places that when I was doing the Tour de French cuisine, it's when I really started delving into what this fountain was and who designed it and everything about it. And so it goes back quite a long time. And when I first came here, when I met a certain French pompier, this is where we met. It was right here at the Place Saint Michel. So it has a little bit of a special memory for me too. So here it is. That is our lovely walk. And look, it's exactly an hour. And so thank you guys for joining me a little bit later for you, since we are now, you're an hour closer to Paris. How about that? Every single day. I used to love that. I used to love the fact that I could say that we are an hour closer to Paris. Let me try to turn this guy around. We'll see how this is going to work. And so I can say hi. Hi, everybody. So it is, thank you guys all so much for joining me today. Let's see, can we get this thing to work? What's it doing? We'll get this. But thank you guys so much for joining me. It is but a little windy, but it's not too bad today. But thank you guys so much. And I'll show you the side street here. Look at how I said there is when you look straight down there where you see all the kind of the Christmas lights, right past that is a hotel that used to be a Hilton, and now it's been completely redone. It has a rooftop bar. So you know that we'll be checking that out soon. Jenny, if you're watching, make a note. We'll be definitely checking that out soon to go get a little view over. But if you go down this street, if you go straight down the street, you go right directly to Odeon. So how about that? I stayed, as I told you guys last week, I stayed on the street right behind us, and I would go over to my favorite comptoir, and I would walk all the way down to Saint Andre des Arts, and then on the Comédie Ancienne, and then around. And then I realized pretty much at the very end of my stay that I could have gone up my street, Haute-Ville, and go straight there and basically take a right, and I was right there at Odeon. So, you know, I still like to go no matter what I'm doing. This whole last week, or the week before that, when I was going over to the right bank so much, it was during Fashion Week, and we were going to all these different events. Every time I cross the river, I'd go over a different bridge. So that was kind of fun. It's still good to explore. And I still find things that I never noticed before. And it could be on a street that I go to up and down a million times. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I'll see if I could scroll over and see if you guys had any questions or thinking that I was crazy because nothing was working here. But thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. If you want to leave a tip or anything to help pay for this never-ending technological problems that I'm having, you could do that at Venmo or PayPal or even Zelle at ClaudineHemingway.com. And I just thank you guys so much for your support and joining me. And next week we're going to go over a little bit more actually in the 7th, but very close, kind of near the Orsay. But there is a really wonderful street that I have gone down before, and I walked by it the other day, and I was like, wait a minute, I got to do a walk down here because there's just one cool building after another with a bunch of interesting stories. And a very famous lady lived on that street too that everybody knows. So join me next week. The podcast tomorrow is about it's the first part. I did so much research when I was not here that these podcasts were so much that I had so much information. We did 2 episodes. The next one is about a woman named Violette Noziere, and she was another one of our little true crimes. She was a young girl that ended up maybe killing her parents or trying to kill her parents. She killed her father. Look at the light over there. Look how gorgeous that is. But it's a really interesting story. So definitely check that out. And then pretty soon it's going to be the 150th episode. I can't believe it. And if you guys have something you want me to talk about or tell you more about on the podcast or the walk, make sure you send me an email, Claudine@ClaudineHemingway.com. And I would love to incorporate that, especially for you guys that join me every single Sunday and allow me to have that time to come into your life to bring you a little bit of Paris and all of its wonderful history. So thank you so much. And I will see you guys all soon. Thanks, guys.